that we will cover in this section. Firstly, we will check out what is exception handling and why do we need to do it and how to do it. And we are going to check out how to perform the exception handling using try clause, catch clause, on clause, and finally clause. And now if you notice, if you are familiar with Java or any other programming language, then this on clause will be new to you. So don't you worry, we will cover it with the help of valid example. And thereafter we will check out what is stack trace. And in the end we will also check out how to create our own custom exception handling class. And we are going to cover all of these topics using two videos. So in the first video we will check out how to perform the exception handling, and in the next video we will check out how to create our custom exception handling class. So make sure you watch these two videos. So let us start with our first video. So firstly, what is exception handling? Well, while using any application, you might have noticed our application crashes. For example, our Anode application crashes right while using it. Well, this problem arises when the normal flow of program is disrupted and then the application crashes or terminates. So these arises due to some exception in our code or some bug in our code. So we need to handle such exception so that our application users are always happy. And in Dart, we have many different kind of exception that might arise within our application. Some of the common exceptions in Dart are format exception, IO exception, integer division by zero exception. So in this video, let us take one of these exception and try to explore exception handling in Dart. So head back to your editor, and here if you notice on the top, I have written some objective. But before that, let me show you how an exception arises in a program. So for that, let us write some code. Int result equal to, let's say, 12 divided by 4. And here we have some warning. The value of type double can't be assigned to a variable of type integer. Now in Dart, we have a special operator of tilde and then division symbol. So this whole as an operator means that divide to integer and then return the result in the form of integer. So 12 by 4 will be 3 and will be returned in the form of integer. So basically it is actually the division operator for the integers. And now let us print out the result. Interpolation result. Launch the application. And there we go, the result is 3. So nothing new till now. But now what if I change this 4 to 0? And we all know from the mathematical point of view, any number divided by 0 is actually undefined or infinity. So let's see how Dart handles such situation. Now in this case, we have simply got an exception, that is our application has crashed, which has resulted in the poor user experience. So here we have got integer division by 0 exception. Now it is our duty as a developer to handle such exception and keep our application up and running. So for this we have something called exception handling. So the syntax is, let us enclose these two lines of code within the try block. That is try curly bracket open and then close. So within the try block we have written our vulnerable code that might throw an exception or which might lead to crashing of our application. And now after try we have to also catch the exception. So for that we have the objective one. Now whenever you are sure that you are about to get a specific exception, that is, you know the name of the exception. So in that case we use the on clause. So here I will use on, let us use our integer division by 0 exception and then our clause. And within this we can write our code such as cannot divide by 0. Perfect. Let us now launch our application, and this time our application has not crashed and it is up and running. Here we have got a message cannot divide by 0 just because we have handled our exception. Well, this was our case 1, so here on the top let us write case 1. Perfect. Let us now move to our objective 2. So for that let us define our case 2. So when to use the catch clause? Now previously we saw the on clause where we were sure about the exception. Now in case you are not sure what kind of exception we are about to get, such as in this case suppose you are not sure that we are about to get this exception. So in that case we can use the catch clause. So here I have written some comment line. When you do not know the exception name, use the catch clause. So for that, let us copy all of these code and paste it down below here. Perfect. And instead of on the exception name, use the catch clause. Catch keyword followed by, in the parenthesis, we will get E as a parameter. Well, E will be the object of our exception thrown. So here we can simply write the print statement as the exception thrown is $interpolation E. Perfect. Let us now launch our application. And there we go. In the case 2, we got the exception thrown is integer division by 0 exception. So just remember, whenever you are not sure what kind of exception is going to be thrown, use the catch clause. And in case you know the exception, then use on clause. Perfect. Let us move to our third objective. Catch clause with exception object and also the stack trace object. Now what is a stack trace? I will talk about it shortly. But before that, let us copy all of these code and paste it down below and let us modify it, such as case 3. And now here we have some comment statement. Using the stack trace, we can know what are the events occurred just before throwing the exception. So for that, what is the syntax? Now right after E, we can use the comma and use S, which will be our stack trace object. So this stack trace object will actually help us to know what happened before the exception occurred. Interpolation S, that is our stack trace object. Let us now launch our application. And there we go, we have got the sequence of events in case of case 3. So here the exception thrown is this, and then we have the stack trace such as event 0, 1, 2 and 3. So these are the actual events that occurred before the exception was thrown. And now let us move to our objective 4, that is finally clause. So down below here, let us write our comment statements. And then let us copy the code of our case 2 and paste it down below. Perfect. Now here it looks similar to our case 2, but right now I am going to append one more clause here, that is finally clause. And within the finally clause, I will simply write a print statement which will make you understand what is finally clause. Perfect. So this is the finally clause and is always executed no matter if there is any exception or not. So here is the comment statement for that. Let us now launch our application for case 4, and there we go. Since our exception was thrown, but then also the finally clause was also executed. So right now let us modify our code and let us divide 12 by a valid integer such as 3. And then see what happens. Now this time in case of case 4, there was no exception thrown, but still the finally clause was also executed. So this simply shows that no matter what happens to your code, the finally clause will be always executed. So just remember that. Perfect. So in this way, in this video, we have simply covered the basics of the exception handling. Now in the next video, we will create our own custom exception class.